Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Lidarga Velazi, and before we begin, we want to remind you again that for more of the best content from Israel, sign up today for our streaming platform, ILTV+. And now, coming up in today's newscast. As the Russian invasion enters day 19, Moscow continues its heavy bombardment of Ukrainian cities as the fourth round of negotiations resume. Following massive criticism, Israel eases its limitations on entry for Ukrainian refugees. And Iran claims responsibility for attacks on U.S. and Israeli targets in Iraq. How will this affect negotiations over the nuclear deal? Monday marks 19 days since the beginning of the Russian invasion into Ukraine, as Moscow continues its bombardment of Kiev and other major cities. Meanwhile, some hope as the fourth round of talks resume. Safni San with a report.
Day 19 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine saw Moscow continue its bombardment of major Ukrainian cities as Russian forces continue to edge closer to the capital. Kiev now coming under bombardment by Russian forces as blasts rocks the center of the capital, causing damage to buildings and vehicles. In the early hours of Monday morning, at least one person was killed and 3 injured when Russians shelled an apartment building in the city.
Это у нас горе, это долбень он. Это пидорас, блядь, просто один пидорас, блядь. У меня нет слов, понимаете? Нет слов для этого, чтобы выговаривать это все.
The Russians also continue their siege and bombardment of the southern port city of Mariupol, which is reportedly running out of food and water. And on Monday morning, the world learned that the pregnant woman and her baby, who were evacuated from a maternity hospital bombed by Russian forces last week in Mariupol, and whose photos were seen around the world, has died along with her baby. And, in his latest video address, Ukrainian President Zelensky issuing a warning to Western countries, saying you might be next. This following a Russian missile attack that left dozens dead some 20 kilometers from Poland, a NATO ally.
Тепер це очевидно. І зараз я повторюю знову, якщо ви не закриєте наше небо, то це лише питання часу, коли російські ракети впадуть вже на вашу територію, на територію НАТО.
Zelensky, also addressing the latest round of negotiations on Monday, the goal according to Ukrainian officials is to achieve a ceasefire, immediate withdrawal of Russian forces, and security guarantees. The president said both sides were in contact every day and that negotiations were necessary, and it so far allowed for the evacuation of some 5,550 people through humanitarian corridors. He added the next step might be a meeting of both presidents, a meeting Israel has offered to host.
У нашої делегації завдання чітке – зробити усе, щоб відбулася зустріч президентів, зустріч, яку, я впевнений, очікують люди.
And now, Israeli delegations on the Moldova-Ukraine border are offering assistance to Ukrainians fleeing the fighting. Joining us now from the ground in Moldova is Chezi Rosenbaum, EMT and team leader at United Hatzalah. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So,
yeah,
I was going to ask, what is the situation like on the ground right now?
So right now we're standing on the border between Moldova and Ukraine, and we have refugees coming out. You see older people with kids, no men, because no men are eligible to leave Ukraine. But you see carrying bags and all what they're able to put in like a little bag, and just running away from home. That's what we get to see here.
And I mean, how many refugees have you seen coming through so far? And also, what is the condition of those crossing the border?
So we get every day like thousands. In like a week, I'm here for 2 weeks already as part of the United Hatzalah delegation here. And the numbers are going down. We used to see waiting lines of 6-7 hours a day and people traveling 4 or 5 days to get to the border. Today we hear it's more like 30 minutes of wait or 40 minutes wait, but you see the families here, and it's heartbreaking every day. We didn't get used to it after 2 weeks of standing here.
And what assistance are you providing them for those crossing the border?
So basically, we see the people and we give them blankets, we're giving them meals, we're giving them food, we're giving them heating pads, and of course, medical treatments. We're all United Hatzalah are either doctors, medics, or EMTs. So we're not really seeing too much of military wounds, but we're treating a lot of cases here on the border.
I mean, what kind of injuries are you seeing with people coming through?
You're seeing people that don't have their medicine and they have high blood pressure. You see diabetes. You see injuries breaking. People broke their feet on the way. We're seeing asthma attacks. We're seeing pregnant ladies coming through with difficulty from all the standing in lines and all the way that they got here.
And how is the weather there? I see that you're wearing, winter jacket. Are they coming through? Are they cold? How are the children doing that are coming through?
Well, it's very cold. It's now -1 out here. We had colder days. We had we even reached -10 here, and we had snow on us many days. Today is a nicer day, which is only -1. But you see people freezing. We're giving them these heating pads, which I'm holding in my hands also to warm myself up. But we're giving the heating pads. We're giving blankets, thermic blankets. We're giving anything we could to make them warmer. And jackets, of course. I'm clothing to the kids if it's wet. We bring everything we have.
And is there anything lacking at the moment? Anything still needed in terms of supplies to help and maybe aid the refugees?
So I can tell you, food is one of the most important things. I can tell you we're the only delegation here on the Palanca border. We don't see anyone else. We're the only team right here.
The only team that's providing aid to the thousands of refugees coming through.
Absolutely. We're the only team. There's no one except for the United Hatzalah here. There's no one here.
Incredible. What are the conditions like for them once they do cross the border? Once you provide them with the aid, what happens then?
So basically, there's vans that are coming here on my right, and they're loading up people. I don't know if you can get to see it. I'll move out of the frame a little, and you'll see they're loading up people to the buses, and the buses are taking them to a camp. And from the camp, they're pushing them up to Kishinev, and from Kishinev all over Europe, and of course, anyone eligible to come to Israel, we, according to the Israeli government laws, we try and help them.
So United Hatzalah does incredible work all over the world whenever there's a need for aid. For you personally, have you ever experienced something like this or seen this level of assistance required?
I never. This is something I'll take with me for the rest of my life. We have a roller coaster of we all have our hours of tears and crying because something not easy to really see. I think my first impression was Holocaust. That was the first time when I saw these long lines and a mother with a 5-day-old baby wrapping her just to make her a little warm before we gave her blankets and stuff like that. So this is definitely not something I'm used to seeing. This is probably the first time, and this is definitely something will stay with me for the rest of my life.
Absolutely. Chazi Rosenbaum, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and good luck on your continued efforts in Moldova. Israeli Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked announced on Sunday a slight easing of restrictions on the number of Ukrainian refugees allowed into the country. The move came following massive criticism of the government's limited refugee policy. Marnie Shamroth with the report.
אנחנו פותחים את שערינו, אבל לא לכמות בלתי מוגבלת. בסוף האתגר המרכזי של ממשלת ישראל ושל מדינת ישראל זה לקלוט את המוני העולים החדשים שמגיעים לכאן, וכן, גם הם נמלטו מהקרבות. ואני קוראת לכם, לכו לראות את היופי שקורה בטרמינל 1, את קליטת העלייה המסיבית, זה מחמם את הלב.
Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked made these remarks Sunday at a press conference at Ben Gurion International Airport. Shaked announcing that now relatives of Israelis who are not eligible for citizenship will be allowed to stay in the country temporarily. They will not be included in the current tally, capped at 5,000 non-Jewish Ukrainian refugees and some 20,000 who were already in the country allowed to remain temporarily. Israel's refusal to accept a greater number of non-Jewish Ukrainian refugees has come under fire in recent days, even from voices within the coalition. Outrage has also grown over the treatment of refugees arriving at the airport, many who have been detained for hours. Yet, despite the limited easing of restrictions, Shaked still reiterating that Israel cannot allow for an unlimited number of refugees.
ואני רוצה להגיד, למרות אלה שתוקפים, ולמרות שתוקפים אותי, ולמרות שבאים בביקורת, אני לא שוכחת שאנחנו קודם כל הבית הלאומי של העם היהודי, ואנחנו את מירב מאמצינו נשקיע בזכאי חוק השבות שמגיעים לכאן בהמוניהם.
And while millions of Ukrainians are still attempting to flee the fighting, one Israeli living in Ukraine was able to safely make it out of the country and back to Israel. Joining us now is Peter Kolomiets, general partner at SID-VC, with his journey back home. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting.
So, what was the situation like back in Kharkiv before you left?
It was pretty good situation because it's a beautiful city with very good citizens. I have company 250 people there. We have these couple exits and we have very bright future just before the day the war started.
And I understand, Kharkiv is a city that we've heard a lot about that's been bombarded heavily by the Russians. Were you still there when the city was under attack?
Yeah, I was there for 14 days and it was crazy because every day it's like surprise because every day you see bodies on the street, you see houses that was destroyed, you see people that's crying. It's I never see such things. It reminds me Aleppo, maybe in Syria, but it's crazy because you see like even dead children's. It's unbelievable what you see. It's even hard to explain.
And when did you decide to leave?
When I got a bullet in my window and bomb was attacked one of my apartment. I didn't live there, but still it was my apartment that I decided to leave because it was too dangerous and it was the right decision because it's like crazy because you don't have a place to be safe because, for example, in Israel you have places where you can hide from bombs and you have like shields that can protect you from these rockets. And in Ukraine you don't have nothing and it's pretty scary to be there because you know that every day it can be your last day because it's like just luck that I didn't get hit by a bomb.
And tell us about the evacuation itself. I can't imagine that it was an easy one crossing the border.
It was pretty hard because they stopped me. They thought that I showed them Israeli passport, but because I had some other passport, they thought that I can be spy, and they investigated me for 18 hours. And it was pretty hard because even they put a gun to my head, but in the end it's ended pretty well, and I'm here in Israel. But it was very hard because I believe they did their work, but still it was pretty hard to live. And just because I did so many things to Kharkiv, and they spoke with persons that they know that they can say that I help them, I help to their family. This is what saved my life, because I don't think that I will be here if I didn't do everything that I did.
And I mean, how was the journey from Kharkiv to the border? Were you able to get there smoothly? I mean, were there obstacles on the way? Can you tell us a little bit about this journey?
Yeah, I drove from Kharkiv to border of Moldova. It was like 42 hours of straight driving because it's huge traffic jams because so many people left Kharkiv and they live in from the bombs. And it's totally understandable because it's crazy to be there because you see cars, like when you go in the morning to the street, you see a lot of cars in fire because in the night, because Russians use non-conventional bombs, and it's like have radius around half of kilometer, and even if your car like meters, hundreds of meters from there, they still get hit, and it's crazy. This is why so many people left, and just you have huge traffic jam. For example, in the border of Ukraine and Moldova, you need to wait at least 8 to 12 hours to get to the passport control, and it's like unbelievable because you don't have toilets. There are some volunteers that help you with coffee or tea, but it's crazy that you need to sit in a car for such a long time. But you don't have other choice because you don't have place to stay because Kharkiv, for example, is 1 million people, more than 1 million people, and they like 90% of city left, and they are now trying to or exit to Moldova or to live on other cities, and it's crazy because you can find an apartment. So this is why you need to sleep in a car.
It sounds like an incredible journey. We're glad that you're back in Israel safe. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Now, in other news, Iran's Revolutionary Guards claimed responsibility Sunday for a dozen missile strikes against alleged Israeli targets in Iraq's northern Kurdish capital of Erbil, according to Iran state media. Joining us now to discuss the attack is Middle East expert and lecturer at Bar Ilan University, Dr. Mordechai Keidal. Welcome. So, first of all, what can you tell us about the attacks?
All I can tell you is what I read in the media. I'm not there. I was not there. I have an alibi. And all I know is what I read, that an area next to the American consulate in Erbil was attacked and some buildings were damaged. The Iranians, of course, claim that the building which was attacked actually was an headquarters for the Mossad, which works in Erbil. That's what they claim. If the Mossad is there or not, I have no idea. I'm not in the Mossad. And that's what they claim. But, however, I must say that Erbil witnessed through the last years a big wave of building, construction, because this is a nice place, no war, it's a calm atmosphere, and people are talking business in Erbil. And many buildings were built, and I read here and there that Israeli investors are actually involved in construction in Erbil.
I mean,
so maybe the Iranians think that these construction companies are actually the long hand of the Mossad.
And so that's why, I mean, they would attack in Iraq. And why claim responsibility for such an attack now?
Because they want to show everyone that they are not afraid of the Americans, they are not afraid of the Israelis, and they will retaliate for the killing of the two people in Damascus, allegedly by Israel, as they say, in any time and place which they find appropriate. So in order to save their face and to show that they actually are able to do whatever they like, wherever they like, to whoever they like, even Americans, and even near the Americans, especially in these days of negotiations in Vienna, in order to show that they can.
And so how will this affect the negotiations in Vienna, if at all?
Well, as much as I understand, these negotiations are stuck because of the Russians, not because of the Iranians, because the Russians want to exclude all kinds of cooperations between Russia and Iran from the sanctions which the world today is putting on Russia. And unless the world excludes Russia from these sanctions, they will not vote for the renewed agreement with Iran. So maybe this will be the issue which will postpone for who knows how long the returning of the world to the JCPOA. On one side, it is not good because Iran can run forward in its nuclear military program. Yet, it doesn't lift the sanctions yet from Iran, although I suspect that the American administration will lift at least part of these sanctions without any agreement, only because they want to do it in order to push Iran back to the oil and gas market in the world, in order to lower the prices of the gas in the pump in Wisconsin.
Now, I have to ask, because there are many critics who say that Iran is in a much better position today than it would have been had the United States stayed in the original JCPOA. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
It is actually not true. First of all, because Iran had a secret program by which they could go around or circumvent any agreement and any inspection. So anyway, they would be able to come to the point which they are today, even with the JCPOA remains as it was. This is the first thing. Second thing, The problem with the JCPOA that in the end of this, Iran can do whatever it likes, and this is the big problem with this agreement, with this treaty or whatever. And this should have not been signed to begin with. So returning to this is totally unacceptable, not only by Israel. It shouldn't be acceptable by even by the Americans, who allegedly do want to stop the Iranian nuclear military program.
All right, Dr. Mordechai Kedal, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
And now, moving on. Have you ever imagined what a picnic on Mars would be like? Well, you might not have to imagine for much longer, as a new exhibit is trying to understand how the food we choose to eat today will impact our future. Let's take a look. Who doesn't love a great picnic? A blanket, some food, some wine. But have you ever thought about taking a picnic on Mars? Well, now you can. We're here at the Asaf Culinary Institute of Israel, established in collaboration with Startup Nation Central and the Jewish Food Society. This truly is an amazing place. Let's take a look. So what is the purpose of this exhibition?
It's a project about food, about our future, about the way we want to design our future, but actually it's also about here and now, about how we live here and what we need to do in order to shape our future in the way we want.
So why is the issue of the food that we consume today so important?
So basically it depends what we are talking about, which kind of food, but many food ingredients require different resources, different energy, and the way we eat, the way we actually deal with our food daily affect our future, affect our planet.
And so if we want to continue our future on this planet, we will need to harness the world of high-tech into traditional agriculture. That's where Chalgol comes in. They have developed a superior protein alternative made of grasshoppers.
When we look at alternatives, we always have to do better. It has to be healthier for us, more sustainable, and also taste better. Grasshoppers are the perfect solution for that because they are nature's most efficient protein source. They have a rich nutritional content, highly digestible, highly sustainable, and they taste amazing.
And he's not the only one considering the future of food. At the Asif Culinary Institute of Israel, the boundaries of food are constantly being challenged.
There are more than 134 different cuisines that live alongside each other in this country. This really tiny country. And Asif came in order to explore the origins, to understand what happens when so many cuisines sit alongside each other. What is the creation? What comes out of this collaboration and cohabiting?
The state-of-the-art building, which includes an exhibition gallery, a cafe, a delicatessen, a bar, a culinary library, and an experimental kitchen, is dedicated to shining a spotlight on Israeli technological innovation in the field of gastronomy.
In the future, we should take things from the past, from our tradition. We will go forward with our identity. It's going to evolve, it's going to develop.
Asif truly is an incredible place that merges the culinary with high tech and lets us imagine a better and definitely yummier future. So if you're here in Tel Aviv in the coming months, come and visit and take a look for yourselves. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies across the country today with scattered showers expected tomorrow. Then lows tonight dropping to around 0 to 6 degrees Celsius or 32 to 43 Fahrenheit. And highs reaching 13 Celsius or 55 Fahrenheit. All right, that's it for today's news. But for more of the latest updates from Israel, make sure to head to ILTV.tv or an app store and subscribe to our newsletter as well as for our new streaming platform, ILTV+. It's available on all devices and on Roku and Amazon Fire TV. I'm Ladar Gavelazi. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.
Stay informed with the latest Israel news, live programs, culture, kosher cooking, and more on ILTV+. Subscribe on any device now and get a free month trial. Go to www.iltv.tv